Hey guys, Bix Weir, roadtoruta.com. I got Andy Schectman fresh back from the Silver Summit. We're talking silver. We're talking Silver Eagles. Got some new news on that. First of all, Andy, how you been? You're running around the world loading up everybody on silver. Did your back hurt from carrying so much to deliver door to door?
No, man, I'm just a little weary. 5 days in Vegas. My
That'll do it.
brain kind of feels like oatmeal or a Nerf ball. I don't know which one. It was great. It was great to be with like-minded people. It was great to be with people who were enthusiastic, who haven't been dissuaded by the volatility and the underperformance of silver. People who get it. It's nice to be around like-minded people. But a week on the road, I spent a couple days in Denver visiting my kid. Week on the road is a long time. It's good to be home, that's for sure.
Yeah, old guys like us don't travel that well. So I've been to quite a few of the Silver Summits. I used to speak at them. They asked me to speak this year. Didn't work out with my schedule. In the early days, I remember screaming about computers and derivatives. And the mining companies were not having any of it. And they're like, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. Now, I think pretty much everybody believes that the silver price is rigged, other than Jeffrey Christian. He knows it's rigged. He just isn't allowed to say it's rigged. Was he there? Was he at the conference?
No, he was at Rick Rule's conference a few months back here in Boca, and didn't get the chance to really pick his brain very much. But I mean, at this point, if you deny the fact that the metals markets are controlled by a handful of bullion banks with a vested interest of supporting the Western system, the bond market, at this point, it's a lost cause to try and convince you. The people that were there understand it. And if anything, it energizes them when the price falls. They understand what it truly means. And I think there's a feeling that we're getting close to that moment. And, we've been saying that forever. I'm the little boy who cried wolf. I'm on the cover of that book.
We all are.
But the wolf does come at the end. And I think people are beginning to sense that. They feel that not just in silver's relative underperformance, but just in everything around us on a large scale. And so I think people understand that, when the price gets knocked down at a time when it should be doing anything, but it's read the right way by the people that are at that show. And, yet I watched or I read a post that Jeff Clark, who I love, Jeff's a great guy, made a post on LinkedIn and got ravaged by the people, the people who don't see things the way we do, the mainstream, and ridiculed him for the way that, the reasons that the mainstream would. And I talked a lot about that. I said, I got a guy that lives across the street from me, one of the biggest money managers in Florida. And the only time that he ever mentions silver or gold to me are on days that it's down. And it's just part and parcel. And the people who don't see what's coming will not have the ability to get out of the way of it. And I talked a lot about that. So, I think you can only save the world, Bix, one person at a time, starting with yourself. But when you look around and see the macro picture, if you don't see the danger in traditional assets, in bank accounts, in treasuries, which, the fall in the 10-year treasury amounts to one of the largest drops in recorded market history. And it's just beginning, in my opinion. So, yeah, there's a lot to be bullish about. But by the same token, if you're not understanding it from the way we look at things, it's easy to have that cynical viewpoint. And I understand it, but I think it's sad because the majority of the country will be blindsided by what's coming next.
I'm still amazed to this day, after being in this game for so long, that the vast majority of people have no idea why they should hold gold or silver.
Right.
They have literally no idea. And it's, I remember when I first got into it, Ron Paul was running for president, and I'm like, oh man, he's got some great ideas. And everybody was like, yeah, he's an old guy. And he wasn't always an old guy. But I looked at some of his early debates, like in the 80s, and he was just on fire. He would destroy anybody in a debate at any time. And he was treated like shit by the media. And, Fox News, I remember Fox News interviewed him and to say, are you a racist? You published a racist magazine. And it's like, oh my God, this is like the nicest guy in the world. And a guy trying to help the world and save the world and teach people about the Federal Reserve and fiat money. No one knew about fiat. Well, some people did, but most people don't talk about fiat money back then. And now they're starting to a point. I think that's good. I think especially younger people are starting to say, oh my God, this cryptocurrency thing taught younger people a lot about the fiat money system. And whether or not you like it or you don't like it, which coins will survive, which won't, what will the future look like, what will we use as money? All that stuff is on the people's minds now. And I think that's a big shift from back in the early 2000s when that wasn't on anybody's mind. I mean,
well, over half of the crowd there was crypto oriented, and I was very pleasantly surprised by their understanding of it. And the thing with cryptocurrency, a lot of people jumped into it to make a fortune, and a lot of people did. I remember you telling me to buy Theta at 5 cents, and those who were smart enough and saw things clearly enough did. Life-changing. But I also think those that have stuck around long enough and have understood the fundamentals of why to own crypto. This is why I was always so enthusiastic about merging the crypto community with the hard asset metals community. The reasoning is the same. The flaw is that I don't think you buy gold and silver to get wealthy. Look, the arguments that you make for silver are phenomenal, and they're logical, and they make sense, and you could make an awful lot of money, but that's still not the reason why I buy it. Knowing in the back of my mind, sure, I could make a fortune if things finally get normal. But I think you buy it because we live in a world that is bizarro. It's insanity. And what gold and silver represent to me are 5,000 years worth of sanity. So yes, there's certainly great life-changing profit potential in silver as well. But I think the people at this show understood that, there's room for both in the portfolio. And even though they both speak to the same pushback against a system that's broken and corrupt, the real reason to own it is because it's wealth and that it's outlived everything the world's thrown at it. So adding some insurance even to a great crypto portfolio is something that I believe is very sound, and that resonated with a lot of people there. I was really encouraged by that.
That's great news. Let's talk a little about what's going on with the Silver Eagle program. I did get in touch with my guy over at the Mint, Jack Sermon. He's the head of the Silver Eagle sales department. I could tell. I was just texting back and forth with him. I can tell that he got a little maybe reprimand, shall we say, because the first thing he said is, "Boy, we're really turning the corner. That Ventress Gibson's doing a great job. She's really stepping up." I mean, instantly I'm laughing, but he is correct. And I said, hey, the numbers don't show it because they went through like 3 weeks where they didn't change the numbers. I said, what, have you stopped again? He says, let me get right back to you. 2 minutes later, they changed the numbers. He goes, oh, they just forgot to update it for the last month. And all of a sudden, the numbers are off the charts, 3 million coins a month now. And he said they're going to do that throughout the year to end up at 25 million for the 2023s. And I'm like, well, that's obviously better than, they were doing 900,000 a month for like 4 months at the beginning of the year. It's obviously better, but it's still not living up to the word of the law, which says you must make Silver Eagles that will satisfy demand. That is the law. And they have a allocation program there where they allocate just certain amounts to their authorized purchasers. That is just completely against the law. And when he tells me we're going to do 25 million in 2023 and how much better it is than last year, the first thing I say is, well, if you didn't have this allocation stuff, how many would you do? Would you do maybe 50 million or 75 million? Or would you have done 100 million Silver Eagles this year if there was no restraint on how many people could buy? I think you could have, especially at the beginning of the year and and last year when things were going crazy.
We could have over the last 4 years without even question. I mean, there's no question about it. And I think your interview was one of the interviews I'll put up there as one of the most relevant and important to listen to of my career. And I'm sure he caught a lot of flack for it, but I think that's one of the things about this community and the power of social media and of YouTube and of doing things the right way, being respectful in reporting and actually being a journalist like you are, or an investigative journalist. Maybe you don't look at yourself that way, but I do. I mean, that's a groundbreaking interview that you have, and I'm sure that has a lot to do with why they jacked up supply. I'm sure they were getting a lot of heat from a lot of different places.
Oh, absolutely. And every time I dig back into the U.S. Mint, the numbers that they've posted on Silver Eagle sales, it always comes back to me to the 2021 explosion of silver demand when it almost hit $30, and then the Rustin Benham announcement. Oh, we had to tamp down the price of silver, or the structure of the market tamped down the price of silver. Both are illegal. The big thing to me is in that same year, the silver hedge book for the U.S. Mint exploded. They lost $112 million on their hedge book. And throughout the year in 2021, the price of silver, the fiscal year, the price of silver had gone down quite a bit. So you should have made, wait a minute, the price of silver went down. So your hedge book should have made you back the money. That's the only reason to have a hedge book, is at least that's what they say. They say they don't trade with it. But if they were told, don't close out these hedges at the beginning of the year because the price was about to run to $30, that's pretty significant evidence of market manipulation, help with market manipulation by the U.S. Mint, by Rustin Benham of the CFTC.
See, I don't understand how they would lose anything on a hedge book. The whole premise of a hedge book is to remain market neutral. You're hedging your physical inventory with the futures market. It should be a 1-to-1 hedge, and the fact that they lost is very unusual. And normally you're not. That's speculating if you're hedging without the silver behind it. And if you have the silver behind it and you hedge the position, you unwind one as the other gets sold. So it's very fishy. It makes no sense to me.
Well, it made sense to me when you place it in that time frame, when the regulators were doing anything they can to stop the price from going over $30. And what was it about $30? I mean, we've seen in the past, JP Morgan has always been the market maker. And by the way, last Monday, they were at the end of their deferred prosecution agreement, so they're free to trade in the silver market with no holds barred. They can rig all they want. And since they've been allowed back in last Monday, price of silver just kept going down, down, down. Is it coincidence? No, it's not coincidence. Of course, it's not coincidence. JP Morgan controls the silver market. And you can see that in the OCC data. They have literally, between three banks, they control, I think it's 97% of all the gold and silver derivatives between three banks: JP Morgan, Citibank, and Bank of America for silver. And it just happens for JP Morgan that they have twice as much as the other two. No, they have the equal. JP Morgan has 1/2 of the entire short position in silver, whereas Bank of America and Bank of America has a huge position. We don't know if it's long or short. Ted Butler thinks it's a lease job from the JP Morgan silver, but those two banks equal JP Morgan. So JP Morgan is by far the largest silver controller of physical silver, from their custody of the SLV silver to the derivative silver and we all remember Jeff Curry of Goldman Sachs saying in 2021, saying that the authorized participants are the shorts in silver. And now that's completely illegal. And if that's what JP Morgan is doing, is justifying their massive short position with the silver that is owned by the shareholders of SLV, I can't think of anything more corrupt than that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's very obvious. Look, if JP Morgan, if what they did was so egregious to where they put 2 or 3 of their traders, including Michael Nowak, who ran the desk, in prison, then why were they allowed to continue to run the world's largest silver trust? Why was their fine $920 million, but their desk made $1 billion that year? They walk away 80 million up. No worse for the wear. It's a company that makes $1 billion in profit a month. There's no question that they're behind it, but the bigger issue to me is the fact that, and the reason you don't hear bitching around the world is that this is falling into the hands of the countries around the world that are accumulating it at subsidized prices, allowing a country like India to import over 300 million ounces. And, heaven knows how much silver is really flowing out of the world's exchanges and backdooring out of the ETFs, or how much the US government is accumulating. But whatever it is, it's all being done at an artificial price until it's not. And until the supply demand fundamentals overwhelm. And I really do believe we are entering that period of time, in particular with rising rates, putting greater and greater and greater strain on a banking system that will ignite the fuse of reality to a lot of people. And you could argue by that time, the market is so confused and so leveraged and so upside down that it'll be very difficult for most people to protect themselves in something like silver when there is a mass awakening by the public. And I do believe it starts with the banks. I think that is the fuse that lights the banks. I mean, even talking the commercial banks, they hold right now they have over $7 trillion in uninsured deposits, just the top 4 commercial banks. So, that's global, that's total. The top 4 commercial banks over 4.185 trillion in uninsured deposits. I mean, one of these banks goes and gets bailed in, and the whole fuse of chaos is set off immediately, where everything that we know to be true about market fundamentals and dynamics and prices and suppression all change. And I have a feeling when that happens, companies like JP Morgan are going to be on the long side. And they've suckered as much as they can, to shake the weak hands, the money managers, off the tree again. But when that moment happens, I'll bet you dollars to donuts that a bank like JP Morgan will be on the long side, and it will put companies like it did Bear Stearns out of business very quickly.
Right. But I mean, if the comics is still up and running and they're still trying to play that game, but it does beg the question, okay, if these banks really start going down, what do they hold that they're going to have to sell? I think a lot of them hold gold. Not many banks hold silver at all. JP Morgan, and I would say just JP Morgan right now. If they didn't have to get rid of it through some mechanism in the agreement. But a lot of them hold gold. Like you've been saying, it's a tier 1 asset now. And wouldn't that instigate banks to start dumping gold? If the systems, I mean, if they're falling apart, they got to dump every asset they got. I think gold would be flying out of the banks. And
well, that's the conventional wisdom, and they try and tell us that's what happens. People rush to liquidity, but I've always felt the opposite. I've always felt it was done for damage control, that they're not selling any physical, they're just shorting the market again because their pockets are deep enough and they know the playbook and they're given immunity. And so if it were me and I were those banks, that would be the last thing that I would sell, because I think what's different this time.
That's what I'm saying, though. If it is the last thing they would sell, otherwise they're insolvent, which, we all know how fractional banking works. You would see a lot of people selling gold, a lot of banks selling gold, and and they don't have any silver. So theoretically, I mean, if it was a free market at that point in time, I could see a scenario where the price of gold went down and silver just literally skyrocketed because the banks didn't have any silver to sell.
Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, the market's set up that way. Ted Butler's been screaming of an industrial shortage for a very, very long time. So yeah, I mean, that's all. But and even still, if the banks are forced to sell it, you have many, many eager participants around the world standing ready to take delivery, take the other side of that sale and stand for delivery. That's the type of moment that I've seen for a long time. Now, maybe I have a curse of seeing things like you do long before they actually come to fruition, but the mathematics of it don't lie. And we're going to reach that point. That Rubicon has to be crossed at some point. Question is, how far are we from it? Don't know, but I will venture to say that when you see the commercial banks start lining up again on the long side, in this environment where rates keep rising, look, I don't think 1 out of 100 people in this country understand what a bail-in is, or that it's law and was written into the Dodd-Frank Act. And it's one thing for us to talk about the frailty of all the markets and protect yourself with silver, et cetera, but it's another thing for people to lose everything in a bank account that they think is safe. Well, I'm not going to be in stocks or bonds. That's too risky. I just leave it in a bank in a CD. Well, boom. And then like, oh my God, what's a bail-in? What? It's law? Are you kidding me? When did that happen? And I think that's the catalyst. And then when you realize that the number 2 in charge of economic theory for the White House, Lael Brainerd, that's what she wants. She's a modern monetary theorist. Call the banks. Well, that's how you do it. You blow up some banks and let them get bailed in, and it becomes chaos immediately. And everything that is true right now changes.
I can't see a scenario in which a bail-in happens and the system stays together.
Right. That's the point.
Because everybody would be running to the bank to get their money out if they thought there was any chance of them not getting either their FDIC insurance or whatever it is. The FDIC has barely any money.
That's exactly the point. Not only does it blow up those banks, but the act of running to the banks means they have to sell their treasuries, which puts rates up higher, which kills more banks. It feeds upon itself. And if you were that diabolical to do this, to reset the system, to blow up the banks, to issue a CBDC, don't worry, we'll make you whole. Sign on the dotted line, take the new CBDC, and you'll get your money back. Well, there's your event. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen this week or next week, but that's what I see as the ultimate end game. If you look at how else do you get people to take a CBDC, most people don't want it. I mean, parts of the world, they're burning down the banks that where they're being told they're rolling out a CBDC. People don't want it. So you have to have an event that makes people accept it. And our banks are so leveraged right now with over 7 trillion in uninsured deposits. I mean, that's a fuse, coated in kerosene, just waiting for a cigarette to be dropped on it.
Mm-hmm. I do agree. Although I do think that is the plan of the bad guys. That's how they get there. You'll own nothing and like it.
That's right.
I think the alternative to that, in the United States, at least, we do have a constitution. We can go back to using gold and silver as money. If it's true that the United States government has a hell of a lot of gold secretly stashed away, I can see us moving to a gold back system and silver to a point. I think silver will be way too valuable to use as money for all the industrial purposes. But I look at the different scenarios in the future. I'm like, well, that one's chaos. That one's chaos. That one's chaos. That one's chaos. Every single one of them are chaos. And what do you want to hold when chaos is going crazy?
Well, God bless the legislatures in these states that are prodding their citizens to accumulate it, saying, look, you can pay your property taxes with it. You can own it, and it's legal tender for all debts, public and private. God bless these people. Maybe they've saved 1% of the public in those states. Who knows? But maybe there's some people, maybe there's some of the good guys right there who are actually trying to push back against the inevitability that we see, us tinfoil hat wearing, conspiracy theorists. And I think there will be some people that will be very thankful that that their states passed those laws and that they saw the wisdom in that. So there will be some people that will thrive in this environment. Won't be a very fun time to do well, but I think that is part of the plan. I really do. It's what I talked about at the show. The title of my speech was, could this all have been planned? And I went through 25 slides that support that argument, that indeed, either they're completely stupid or this is exactly where they're going to that moment. I mean, you got Rick Santelli talking about 14, 15, 16% rates on the 10-year treasury over the next few years if his charts play out. And you're talking destruction of the economy to the nth degree. So is that the plan? And the banks, which are levered over 7 trillion in uninsured deposits? Yeah, you see that? Damn right. That's exactly what happens. And then all of this talk of premium and supply and talk in his book and all this bullshit, I think very, very quickly becomes real. And, like I said, my curse is seeing things way too far before they happen, but I do believe there's very little way out of this myself.
I agree. I know Andy's got some Silver Eagles that he's looking to get a good deal for the Road to Ruta folks. What do we got What are you selling Silver Eagles for these days?
2023s are 575 on any quantity. Really large orders, we could probably do a little bit better. I mean, these were $12, $13 higher 6 months ago. And
the price of silver was higher. I mean, people were paying $40, $45 for Eagle.
yeah, no, I think it's worth the premium. And there's something I can't quite articulate, but to say that I think that when the public opens their eyes in that event, they want silver and gold Eagles, period. Absolutely. And so if you're going to buy now, yeah, you can buy kangaroos at 315 over on special. It's a better deal. But if you want the Silver Eagles, to me, it's almost worth this one time paying the premium where we are on this path, on this journey. To me, Silver Eagles are worth the premium. And I don't say that lightly. I understand that those are higher premiums. That we're not making any more money than I do selling the kangaroos. I just think it's worth consideration. Look, for 3 straight years, those premiums went nowhere but higher. And if any of you believe that we're going to see tough times ahead, it's worth putting a portion of your silver into the Eagles right now.
I think, well, I do know that the U.S. Mint plans on doing 25 million coins this year, which is better than what they had planned at the beginning. I was talking to that guy, Jack. He said, well, yeah, we'll do probably 16. So they've gone from 16 to 25, but nowhere near the 48, 49 that they've done before, and nowhere near an expanded Silver Eagle capacity that they've been bragging about in their annual reports.
Look, I heard the guy tell you flat out that he was told to produce just enough to not incite people getting aggravated. And I think we all owe you a debt of gratitude. I don't say that because I'm on your show. You're my friend long enough. I don't need to kiss your ass. I'll simply tell you it was a real and very important interview. The guy said stuff I never thought a Mint official would say. And I bet damn sure that you had a lot to do with them upping production. The real question is, why was he told to not make more Eagles? And I don't believe they wanted to make more money on numismatics. That's a convenient answer for a government that spends money like they're eating gumballs. It's ridiculous. There's something deeper than that, but let's hope it continues. I have a feeling it won't, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, when Ventress Gibson got in with the Biden administration, she had no clue what she's doing. She's an HR professional. But she takes orders, and the order was, and this order was, remember the time frame around 2000. I think she got in right in 2021, right around that time frame when the Wall Street bets shit was going on, and silver was about to break $30. That's when they told the Mint, we don't want you making Silver Eagles to meet demand. We want you making the minimum. Jack, sell the minimum you can without pissing everybody off too much. And when I heard that, I'm like, it's just, what it does? It reinforces the entire 20 years worth of work saying, hey, this game is rigged. The government's involved in it. Here's the things that are going on. This is just another piece of evidence. When Jeffrey Christian says, oh, these tinfoil hat wearing people at the Silver Summit, they don't know what they're talking about. And then JP Morgan gets busted for tens of thousands of instances of silver market rigging. Hey, Jeff, where are you coming out and saying, oh, I was wrong, it was rigged? Oh, no. Those are just they're phantom, that they're never trades that are executed. Well, what do you think? Why do they do it? They do it to keep the price low, to control the price. That's the only reason to do it. They weren't doing it for fun. So Jeffrey Christian will never tell the world, the GATA folks especially, that Jesus Christ, I'm sorry, I was wrong and you were right. GATA was right the whole time, that there are people within the banks, and I'm right, there are people within the U.S. government that's the number one priority, is rig the gold and silver markets.
I agree. Support the bond market, make the dollar seem stronger than it is. It's the old emperor wears no clothes. It's peek behind the curtain and see a little frail old man pulling the levers, Wizard of Oz. That's what it is. And it was easy to do when everyone wanted dollars and everything was hunky-dory here in the West. It's becoming much more difficult. And that's why I think there will become a moment where the clue to all of this will be when the commercials, or for sure JP, are loaded on the long side. And that's when you can expect to see that moment where it'll blow up several of the big money managers who are forced to scurry to cover silver that isn't for sale. And yeah, it gets old, I'm sure, for people to hear us say this over and over and over again. But I'll tell you, I've never been more convinced that we're getting to that moment. And because there's so many areas that could trigger an awareness and trigger a flight out of dollars. So yeah, look, it's been the prettiest mare in the slaughterhouse, that being the dollar, for a long time. But I think it's getting to a point where, look, the bond market is saying to the government, you can't keep running up $2 and $3 trillion deficits. You can't keep adding trillions of dollars to the debt without it having some real ramifications. And as rates continue to rise, it's going to have some serious repercussions. So that's when I think things get interesting in this market. And that's why I think the key is to watch the positioning of the big banks as it pertains to them being long in futures. When that happens, I think at any time they could light the fuse. Everyone runs to metals, the price goes to the moon, and there is no silver to cover those naked short positions that the brain dead money managers put on. So that's coming. When, don't know, but when you can buy stuff on sale at the lowest premiums we've seen in 3 years with immediate availability, I have no problem telling people it's a darn good idea.
And that is being proven so in that the data that Ted Butler analyzes for the last 3 years, the big money's been trying to get out of those shorts. The big commercials are desperately trying to get out of the short position. They'll add a little here and there just to, calm the tide. But I think they've dropped about a third of their shorts in the last 3 years and 2/3 left. And that could happen any day. But I think right now we're at the bottom of the bottom for this latest maneuver. And I think we're going to run up pretty quickly back up towards $30. And if it goes over $30, I mean, that's headlines type of stuff. That's when people say, hey, what's this silver thing I hear about? And then hopefully we'll be around to give them the full scoop. Andy, thank you for everything you do for our people.
Love you, Bix.
How can they get in touch with you, find out what's a good deal, what you guys are selling?
Look, you can go to our website, but the best way is to send an email to info@milesfranklin, say Bix sent me. Ask for a price list, say you're interested in Silver Eagles, ask some questions, and we'll take really good care of your people for sure. And we all owe you a debt of gratitude. You got to keep doing what you're doing, Bix. I know it's tiring, but you're a beacon of light, and I, for one, follow everything that you do and appreciate it. So I'm sure everyone else out there does. We will be proven right. Unfortunately, it won't be probably cause for joy and partying, but it will be enough to save a lot of people a lot of pain. So, and I think no better way to do it than the Silver Eagle. To me, it is the number one silver investment you can own. And they're in stock and ready to go. So I appreciate being here as well, buddy.
Absolutely. And I would say the Eagle, especially if you live in the United States of America, because we'll be looking for solutions to the old money game when the system falls apart. It's either CBDC or something else. And I think the Silver Eagles and the Gold Eagles will do very well. So, right, Andy, thank you so much. And
got it, brother.
Time.
All the best to you, buddy. I look forward to talking to you real soon. Thanks for having me tonight.
No problem. Take care.